Okay, so now what we're going to do is the inventory diagrams. And the inventory diagrams are just the site split into layers or divided into layers, so we can look at everything kind of individually. And also, what we're going to do is we're going to quantify what's going on, how much of each area there is. For instance, the impervious hardscape here, the concrete. The pervious, which is pretty much the aggregate parking lot, I'm calling that. Those are the hardscapes. I'm going to make that distinction. And then the open lawn areas, right, or the lawn, the ground cover. So we're going to also calculate the square footages. And as you see, I have these hatches in here. These are fills. These are just hatches. And this is the same file that I was working on earlier. I've just modified some of the layer states so I can more easily drop in hatch work. So if I isolate that, you'll see that this is what I have. So what I did, I just went in, selected my hatch tool, H, enter, select your hatches. I'm actually doing a solid color. Didn't need to be, but just solid color. Made it easier for Photoshop to read it too. Because this is going to serve two purposes. It's going to allow me to calculate the square footage of each piece, and also it gives me a graphic in Photoshop that I can easily manipulate. So, for instance, we're going to do the pervious, and I've already done it, I'm just going to show it again. So I would have this, pervious is on, go into my hatch. Make sure your edges are closed. If your edges aren't closed, hatches are very particular in AutoCAD, so they're not very forgiving. So you have to make sure your edges are closed and just be very diligent in your drafting. So select the area, and for some reason it keeps on defaulting to my veg layer. I don't know why it's doing that, but it is. No problem. Put it on hardscape impervious, and actually not hardscape impervious, hardscape pervious. Get it right. There we go. And there's the color. So we do that for two reasons. Now, if I select this shape, you'll see that it gives me a cumulative area. So it gives me area. And for instance, for the isolate the lawn area. And you see I'm isolating these groups too, and that's a very important ability. Okay, yeah, that shouldn't be there like that. Okay, so I have my lawn area, and you'll see if I select all these things, it should give me a cumulative area. So just a quick tool to allow you to assess what's going on as far as square footage or cubic yards, whatever you're trying to measure. Also, you see I'm able to lay isolate, so when I print, I can just print these layers off as my layers that I want to illustrate on the inventory diagrams. In order to do that, I'll go back to, let me turn everything on. I'm going to go back to my layout and double click in my viewport, and I want to lay ISO the layers that I want to see. So say for the plant material, I want to see my plant material. And that's what I would get. And then I would just print that off as a PDF, and then bring that into Photoshop and drop them in on top of one another so I can create in one file, and I'll show you that in a second. But that's how we isolate these layers. So I'm going to go back. I know there's I need to still grab my parcel lines, but also let me I guess I should show you a rendered piece too. So let me just grab the, I'll do a couple so we can see. I'm just going to grab the pervious aggregate, and then I'm going to go Control P, and mine is save as PDF. You will probably be DWG to PDF. Should give me a dialog box. I've already been saving a lot of these things, so I'm just going to go demo. It's going to export it as a PDF. Now I'm going to jump into Photoshop, and you'll see that I already have a file prepped, but really what you can do is just go File, Open, and then you would go to your first layer, and this one would be the demo. Make sure that media box is selected. You don't want bounding box, it'll constraint, it'll change your proportion and make sure everything is the same when it comes in so you can easily overlay them. 300, make sure your resolution is good enough so we can see it. So now you have your and I call this, I'll create a group typically, and I'll call it line work. And in this case, that is the pervious aggregate. Now I'm gonna use my marquee tool, and I am going to Command Shift I invert, Control Shift I for people on PC, delete. Oop. Delete. Get rid of, I don't need the tile block stuff. And when I'm here, now I'll just go ahead and make sure you label all your pieces. So that was the pervious hardscape, it's aggregate. And you can change the color of these things. Either you can Command or Control click on the icon and select the color. And I'm doing Shift F5. Make sure your foreground color is selected and enter to change the color of your item. Or you can also go to what's it, layer, image type. It's layer, new fill layer, solid color. And use the previous, and you can pick any color that you want. It'll drop it to it. So there's different ways to change the color, but make sure you pick a color that you want to see. And once you have one done, I'll bring in another one. So I have this boundary line, which is what you need to put in as well. You need a current marker. You'll see in this completed one that you have a boundary, so you give the viewer a reference. So regardless of what inventory layer that you're on, you have that boundary acting as a visual cue of where the site is. So that's the boundary line I have. And once you bring another one, I just open it the same way. Control A, copy, and I'm gonna do a Control Shift V for paste in place, and you'll see that it drops in the same place every time, so you don't have to worry about alignment. It's there. And I would do the same thing. I'll call this boundary. Use my marquee tool and get rid of everything else that I don't need. Control Shift I, delete. You can do the same thing. So layer, new fill layer, solid color, previous. Make that like a magenta. Okay, I'm just gonna merge those together because I want it to be that color. And I want to make that a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna add a stroke to it. These are just things that you can do to help embellish and make your thing look better. Just change that color to that magenta color. That looks good to me. So it stands out. So there. Now you have your boundary, and I'd actually bring that above everything because it's gonna be there all the time. And you would drop these things in layer by layer. Also, let me just add a background, and I'm gonna make that white. If you don't see white, you can click on the two smaller boxes and it'll make it revert to the black and white basic. I'm just going to flip, Control Shift F5 to give it a white background. Make sure my white background is pulled off my line work, so now that we can begin to see our pieces. And then just effectively you would just build these layer by layer. So let me finish completing this one, and I'll show you all the completed ones that I have and that you will eventually make. So I need to get my parcels, so let me Control Z that, and I just Control Z to go back. I don't save. And those people, you can actually create different layouts and just have frozen view for lay ISO for each layout that you have for printing. But this is a small site, and I don't feel like that's necessary for this, so I'm not doing that. So I'm doing a lay ISO, and I just want to have my parcel lines there. And back to paper space, and I'm gonna go Control P, print. And also, I'm going to just Control Z that, I believe. Oh, I actually printed to the printer, so let me try that again. I'm going to go lay ISO, and then Command P, save as PDF, and I'm going to call this parcels. Let me get this thing off, quit that, Control Z that. What else do I need? I need parcels and I need contours. In this case too, I want to actually make that layer. And I want to change some of its properties, continuous. Well, don't even need to do that. Let me LA ISO. And then you grab my contours by themselves. And also I want to get my contour layer. This is something I should have added before, but I'll add now. I'm going to put some text in here. I know that this is low. The site's falling away here, so I'm going to put an LP for a low point. And that's really tiny, but make that bigger. Do like a 3. Okay. So I'll call this like a low point over here. Just so we kind of have a visual indication of what's going on with the site. You could also tag that. I forget what the contour. I should know that though. So the elevation's 806. They could actually add an 806 to that as well. Because it's falling down, right? Let's do 806 where the elevation is. And I believe these are 808s. And if you want, you can rotate them to make them look better. Same thing. Just copying these. What's that? It's an 806. We'll call it a high point right there. Alright. Print that. Call that topo. Alright, so I have a couple layers exported out. And I'm gonna go into Photoshop and I don't need the boundary. That's what I had up before. The demo we don't need to show. Don't need to save that. So I'm gonna finish mine off. The topo. And what did I say? Parcels. Okay. Yeah. So grab this. Well, actually, you can just do Control A, Control C, and then go back and make sure my line work. You see, just be organized when you work in Photoshop as well. And that's gonna be the topo. Use my marquee tool. Try the stuff that I don't need. Put that there. That's great. Parcels. Control A, C. Back in line work, Control Shift V. Now for the parcels and the contours, I'm not going to Control Shift I. I'm not going to kill that to change the color of them. I'm gonna keep them just black, so Those are parcels. And I'm going to put that in the parcels layer. So when I pop that on, hopefully we'll see it. Parcels legend there. And topography, same thing. So we can kind of see what's going on with the site. Now you could also do, in this case, I'm doing it because there's not a lot of topography. It's not very difficult to see. It's relatively flat. But you could do a gradient in here as well. It's a lot easier to do with GIS software, but you can do it manually. For this particular instance, we're just going to leave the contours out. I just want to emphasize that you split things apart and look at things in their separate pieces to help understand what's going on with the site. And I'm noticing that there's a little anomaly right there, so easy to fix. Go back to the topo. Marquee tool still selected, just delete that out. So I don't know what that is, so just delete that. Yes. Okay, so that looks good. Let me go through my pieces and make sure I have everything. I think something's missing still. But topo, parcels. Structures are there. And I'll probably go through and just tag that and call it those things out, like the fence, and that's the raised planter bed, and then the building. I'll probably call those out. Utilities, I need utilities. Vegetation's there. And the hardscape, so I'm missing my utilities. So let's go back and grab the last one, which is utilities. Just Control Z. Get everything go everything, come back, go. I guess in this instance I can't Control Z because I don't want to lose my tags. So if you can't Control Z in this and you're in your viewport, you should be able to turn everything back on this way as well. So not hard to do. There, everything's back on. Okay, now I want to grab you. Let me go back to my model space. And I want to focus on utilities. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to create, I believe, a utilities layer. And this is where you just play around with these things to grab what you need. And I have a utilities layer. Okay. Is there anything on utilities? No. Okay, well, let's fix that. None of these are right AC units, so I'm going to grab those. Those are power poles. That's a storm inlet. That's a power pole, water meter. That is a stormwater drain. I believe that's a culvert, but I believe I made that part of the a trench drain. I believe I made that part of the concrete, so I'm going to leave it alone. And I'm going to put these all on the utilities layer. Great, they're gone. And now, let me turn the utilities layer back on. When I go to layout, I will just isolate my utilities. That should pop up. And then I'm just going to Control P. So it can go really fast for this. This is not a hard thing to do. And it'll give you clean looking maps, and I'll show you too. You can embellish these things. You play with it in Photoshop or just keep simple colors. I'm just really doing simple colors for mine, but you can definitely play with the colors and stuff if you want as well. So I'm going to go utilities. That's great. Control A, Control C, Control Tab back over, Control Shift V. There go my utilities, and they should be in my line work layer. Well, I guess they won't be, but utilities. Turn those back on. And same thing, I don't need the rest of the stuff beyond it. Control Shift I, delete. Now I'm using my magic wand tool, and make sure that I'm on magic wand tool, not quick selection. Let me zoom in some here. And I'm still on that layer, and I'm just going to click on the white space, and it'll frame out the actual utility pieces that I like to have. Now I just want to Control-Shift-I, Command-Shift-I if you're on a Mac, and I'm going to do a black fill on those so I can actually see them. So there would be my utilities, and I'm going to pull that out and put that in utilities folder. So now when I go to utilities, that should pop up, and that's what I want to see. And again, what you can do is just go through and then label these pieces. So those would be the power poles, you know, and so on and so forth, the AC unit, so you know what's going on in the space. And to do that, I'll demonstrate that. I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to do a shape. Fill, strokes fine. And just going to click there, there. And hold shift to come over, try to in a right angle, 90 degrees. Oh, that's not rolling in for me. And then I want to change that, the stroke of that because it's too thick. That's cool. And then I want to get a text tool. And we'll write in, I believe that was the inlet, right? Yeah. Oops. Okay, and we're going to call that inlet. Should be that. Okay. And then what I like to do is just borrow the tags. So just cut both of them, just highlight them both, and hold Alt and bring it up. Hopefully I can modify this. I believe I can. Go back to your pen tool. Oh, maybe I can't. So that's nice to know about, and you can turn it into a Bezier curve, so it's cool. But we don't need that, so I guess you're not going to copy that, so just draw it again. I'm just going to select it. Yeah, I don't need that. I'm going to go back to my pen tool again. And there, to there, to there. And I forget what this one is. It's what, 1.13. Let's make it 1. Okay. And make that 1 too. Okay. Instead of normally at the sun, it's gonna be purple. And you would just do this for each one. And it's pretty much the procedure. Move that over a little bit. Okay, zoom out so I can see. There you go. And you would just continue to tag for each one until you're done. Okay, so you'll see now that I just completed all the inventory maps we can do for this project. And pretty easy to do. Once you have your line work done in AutoCAD, I mean, it's just a matter of going in and dropping colors in. and playing with your layer states and stuff. And then tagging is probably the most tedious thing. It probably took 10 minutes to do, so not bad. If you want to, there's things that you can do for a hat. I'm just going to show you this quickly. I'm not going to render the whole thing. I'm going to keep mine pretty basic, but if you wanted to try, you can play with the different effects that you have in Photoshop. You can do an inner glow. And actually, instead of glow, I'm going to darken it. And I'm going to select this color and just go a darker variation of it. You'll see that when I play with the size of it, you can just kind of get some color and some depth to some of these things if you wanted to. I mean, just stuff like that you can do to help things read better. I'm not going to do that for this one. Maybe on the trees you can add a shadow, you know, to help them read a little bit better as trees. I might leave that on actually. And you can play with all that, the lines and stuff. I like it. That looks good. Okay. And once you have these done, you're just going to export them. So I'm going to go File and Save As. I'm going to save them as JPEG images. Oops. There we go. I'm going to call these JPEGs. I'm going to put them in the appropriate location. So inventory, maps, vegetation. So I've already begun that. So I actually already have that one made, but I'll replace it because I've changed the canopy, the shadow for the canopy trees. Save them out, and we'll use these later when we build the final board in InDesign. But you just want to save each of your pieces out, and that's what it takes to build the inventory diagram.